Hey, Nicotine, I like the new approach idea on your ethics. My problem with utilitarianism starts at a really early point in utilitarianism. When I was being taught about utilitarianism, I mean, there's a certain intuitive appeal to it because we do think in these kinds of ways when we're trying to make a decision that affects a lot of people. But the problem for it as a philosophy is twofold. One, you can't really figure out somebody else's satisfaction or happiness. Two, why base this on happiness or the little bit, better term satisfaction? Why isn't it called happitarianism or satisfactionism? I mean, utility means something. Utility means something useful. Oh, but that's difficult because there's so many different things that can be useful. Yeah, it's dependent on the will. And when you say happiness, it's still dependent on the will. And the will is the only one that can interpret that happiness. And really, interpreting utility is a much more technical thing. Granted, you don't know what to do because you automatically see how you can't decide what is useful for another person, whereas you could pretend to figure out what makes them happy. Okay? And you could pretend that, well, we'll ask them and maybe doing something useful makes them happy, maybe something unuseful. I prefer just to define a utilitarianism that relies on a will defining what is happy. Now, in terms of allowing versus doing, I do have a somewhat deontological view of this. I think there is a fundamental difference between drowning a child and letting a child drown. Because it's easy to say, oh, a child drowning in the pool. But, what if they're out there past the surf break and you have to risk your own life? Yeah, it is different to have placed the child in that situation compared to not doing something. Now, I do believe you should do something to save the child if you can, including risking your own self. But that's just a different level and layer of ethics to me than the basic question, because it remains that there's a difference. So in the trolley example, I mean, I like to tell the trolley example a little bit differently. I mean, so you're there, you switch the switch, you kill the one, and then you find out that the 5 people tied to the other switch are the terrorists that set up the situation. They tied the other guy, they had a buddy tie them up, and it was all to get you to kill an innocent man and put you in this dilemma. And what kind of a dilemma would you be in then? I mean, so I think the difference between action and inaction that I feel is deeply, even though inaction can put you on the side of you've done something wrong, but still not the same thing as initiating it. This is related to skepticism and the fact that you don't have all the knowledge that you would need to make that decision about what to act. When you act, you're taking your approximate knowledge and saying, I'm going to treat it as if it's true so I can act on it. If you don't act, then you haven't made that commitment. And I think that there are arguments against the idea of allowing it. Okay, so what if you're not standing at that switch? Shouldn't you have been? Maybe you should, knowing that switch could be the point of a life and death decision. If you were not at that switch, then you are allowing that decision to be made in an unethical way, or a de facto decision to come down because there is no one there to affect it. So you could have a moral impetus to always be at that switch, which wouldn't make sense. So, yeah, most people do feel intuitively this distinction that you're attributing to deontological view of ethics. In that when you tell the trolley story, most people will do the switch, which still feels somewhat passive, but will not actually push a guy off the bridge, if you know that version, to block the trolley, to actually murder someone, in that actively. So what we get into is that most people feel there's a distinction between action and inaction, but certain kinds of inaction are so trivially avoided. I mean, an action could have been chosen, like standing right there at the switch, that it feels, it feels like it's on the active side of the distinction. But really, depending on how intentional, and I think how intentional the action is, does affect people's moral judgment of it. And I think this doesn't tell us a lot, but it does tell us one thing, which is that questions of ethics are questions of will. If you can't accept questions of will as legitimate, I don't think you'll have the tools to answer ethical questions. Cheers.